And welcome to Smeg and the Femmes, podcast to discuss Red Dwarf from a different perspective. I'm Jan Amelie. At Series 4, Episode 5, A Mention Jump, with the help of two guests. So first, I'd like to welcome back to the podcast, Veronica Rich. And joining us today for the first time, RoseCathy. Hello, RoseCathy.
Hi.
Hi. Would you mind telling me, because I ask all my new guests this briefly, how did you get into the show?
I think it was just like one night we were looking for something new to watch, and at the time Red Dwarf was all on Netflix and it was on some list of like top 10 shows on Netflix. So that's how we got into it, and then obviously because it's Red Dwarf, like I got really into it, and like for the first time, I got into fandom stuff. Like before, I was more like passive, I guess, just kind of consuming fandom content. But then Red Dwarf sort of pushed me to try producing some of my own stuff. So yeah.
Well, that's nice to hear. It was kind of the same for me. As in, it was the first show that I really got into a fandom for. Obviously it helped. That before that, I hadn't really had much, opportunity to, because I wasn't really aware of internet fandoms, or I didn't have enough, or I wasn't aware, but I didn't have enough computer access. But fortunately, it coincided, getting back into Red Dwarf and having more internet access. So that was it. That was a good combination. Right. Okay. The episode, this obviously is an extremely popular episode. You could tell because it gave its title to the official fan club convention, and I can very much see why, because it's one of my personal all-time favourites as well. I don't think you'd find many people who don't like this episode.
Definitely.
So let's just dive straight into the opening flashback sequence, which is very interesting. It's so very very concise. The way it gets its points across, and of course this is the first time that the first time we properly see Rimmer's home and how very middle class it was, and how very how very nice the garden was. And of course, ever since series 10, every time I see that garden, I think of Dungo.
Yeah. Oh.
What an awful mother. I mean, she comes out, she finds her kid strung up upside down with his cap clearly glued on his head, and she just stands there and lectures him and has a seat, crosses her legs instead of like letting him down or anything, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, I know it's. It's awful, isn't it? Did you? Sorry if you already said this, but did you notice he even had Bonehead on his back?
Yeah,
I noticed that. Yeah.
Obviously, his brothers knew about the nickname that he had at school. And were
they probably gave it to him,
being extra horrible. But honestly, this really is one of those sequences where you really do feel very sorry for him, and you can understand why he turned out the way he did. Of course, you need to see this sequence, because then it balances out, later on when he's being completely unbearable, frankly. But yeah, yeah. Rimmer's mum. Apparently, Howard Burden modelled her costuming after the lady who sort of mentored him when he was going into the sort of costuming industry, and you can really see it. It's very sort of pearls and flowery skirts, classic sort of upper middle class mum really.
Yeah, she looks a lot nicer than she is.
Exactly, yeah. One thing I did notice, actually, do you think her red hair is natural? Because if it is, then that gives some oomph to your headcanon that Rimmer is a natural redhead.
I have always called Ace's hair, everybody calls it blonde, and I've always called it strawberry brunette.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I hadn't. I don't think I've thought of Ace's hair as blonde. Yeah, I would say it's like a strawberry kind of color. Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, she's right. I've always thought of Rimmer's hair as having a slight auburn tinge, especially if you get it under the right light.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, oddly, I think it must be in the lighting. In Series 7, his hair looks much redder for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, the actor himself, I saw a picture of Chris one time, and you all may have seen it too. It's like kind of an older picture of him, and he looks like he's sitting in an airport or something, and he's got like almost a full beard, and the full beard is reddish.
Mm-hmm.
He does. I noticed in old black and white pictures of him, his hair does look very black, and I happen to know that red hair used to photograph as black, so that would lend some, a thing to. Yeah, I mean, it's possible, that he is, kind of, a very sort of subtle natural redhead. I mean, obviously not the kind of sort of couch ginger, unmissable kind of redhead, but there are variations of redhead.
Yeah.
Anyway, I suppose we should get off the topic of Chris's hair and.
I don't know. It plays covering it up plays a big role in this episode.
I think since we have a lot to talk about this episode, we should probably move on to Ace's introduction, which is again very sort of. I mean, it's so well done. I mean, I'm just gonna say this now. I mean, bearing in mind that this episode was directed by Ed By, who, as far as I know, is a heterosexual man. Why didn't you give us a close-up of Ace's backside?
Because what a guy.
What a guy. Yeah, I mean, I actually, when I did my rewatch, I watched it with the commentary on, and it's just amazing, like, how much fun the cast are having there. They're all just, like, admiring Ace as he enters. So I think everybody can see that, his assets are being highlighted, let's say.
They really, really, really are. And as I said before, I mean, it makes me wonder about which particular Space Corps employee who, with an obvious crush on Ace, tailored those trousers so that they perfectly.
Oh yeah. Well, wasn't there a story either Chris told or one of the other actors told that when he was dressed as Ace and he was like wandering through the studio, like going to the commissary or whatever, like employees, male and female, like all stopped to look at him.
That guy.
Like in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, it must be such an ego boost. But I mean, he deserves it because I mean, you literally see him alongside Rimmer. I mean, obviously not really alongside, but with a split, and you literally do not know it's the same person.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, okay, so we immediately see his dynamic with Spanners, and how obviously dramatically different it is to Lister and Rimmer's dynamic. I mean, they go straight in for the hug, and Spanners literally calls him handsome. I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think we're all rendered speechless.
I did notice actually, interesting that later on when Lister says I'll have to try and fix the engine, Rimmer immediately says you don't know anything about engines, and Spanners is literally an engineer.
I thought of that too.
I mean, I wonder whether that means Lister, without Ace, might have managed to, I don't know, make some kind of attempt at fixing the engine. But I mean, I think given that Ace said it was a two-man job and there was a howling gale, I don't think he would be able to do it by himself. But then again, neither would Ace. I mean, they really had to work as a team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to move too far ahead soon, but I was watching this, and obviously you've got Lister, Spanners, Rimmer, Ace, and I was looking at the priest and Bongo, and I'm thinking, who are their analogs in the main red dwarf dimension? I mean, is Bongo Professor Mammoth's ex-fiance by chance? And who the heck is Cat's ancestor?
I know. Yeah, I didn't. I mean, there is a thing on the official site where they try to explain it, but I mean, I must admit, I absolutely hate the explanations they give. So I mean, I reject them.
Fans can do so much better.
Yeah, frankly, yeah, I mean, it was kind of authorized fan fiction written by the then person who ran it. I think, I mean, no disrespect. I know he was just doing his job and stuff, but I reject those headcanons.
What was the explanation? Do you remember?
I think something. I can't remember what they. Well, basically, they interviewed Bongo, and it had him say something about the Padre, along the lines of, "Oh, nobody really knows where he came from. He just sort of hangs around, and we put up with him." And I was like,
Oh, weird. Oh,
That's what you want in your religious leader.
yeah, I mean, excuse me. And the one I really hated was saying that Melly was an android programmed to flirt with people. I mean,
Oh,
come
what?
on.
Oh,
No, she's a woman with a mind of her own. Thank you very much. Hated that one.
Exactly.
Weird way to go.
Yeah, I suppose they thought that because Holly was an electronic life form, that she couldn't be human either. I mean, I suppose that was a reason. But I mean, I hate it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, is the priest a cat in the alternate?
Exactly.
I don't.
I mean, it's 3 million years ago, and presumably the cat people didn't exist then. So that's what. Yeah.
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 That doesn't.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense what they wrote it on the official site. So as you said, us fanfickers can do far better, and we will.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So yeah, just briefly on the subject of the Padre. I mean, of course, they wrote that character because they originally were going to write Danny's equivalent, Kat's equivalent, as a slobby cleaner. I mean, obviously to contrast with Kat, but I mean, clearly somebody had a word and said, look, come on, that's a bit sort of, racist. Kat, can you please give him a more dignified character? I mean, I don't know if it was Danny himself who said that. Maybe he did. But I mean, I'm glad they did that because I mean, it's just a more interesting apart from anything else.
Yeah. It's such a fun character, I think. And I think Danny said that he drew from people he knows, like people in his life too, sort of like as inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Obviously, he was doing a Jamaican accent,
Yeah.
Danny, because obviously he knows a lot of Jamaican people, So I mean, fair enough, Although I did one thing which did occur to me was, I mean, given that Danny, was in his 20s then, but they made him pretty convincingly to look significantly older. I mean, he could also play Bongo. I mean, there's no real reason why not, is there? I mean, they didn't have to make.
That's true.
Yeah.
And that might have made it even funnier, giving Kat's antipathy toward Rimmer.
Yes, that would have been funny. It would have been funny, actually. I mean, obviously they decided to go the way they went the way. I mean, it's not that Robert. I mean, Robert is absolutely fine as Bongo. In fact, I mean, I enjoy him as Bongo. But I mean, if they would really go out of the way to not be racist, then they could have made the Admiral Black. But well, they didn't. So well,
right.
Since I am a white person myself, I should probably leave it there. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to Melly, who I adore.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And this, the ridiculous thing is, every time I watch this episode, she's on screen for about 2 seconds. I mean, they yank the camera away from her. I mean, it's like they think if she's going to be on screen too long, people will switch off or something. I mean, come on.
Yes.
It's really noticeable, like upon the rewatch, like that they cut her one a guy, right? Because everybody else gets one, and it's like this very abrupt change.
Why did they do that? I mean, I did wonder whether it's because the episode was running too long. But I mean, I had a look at the running time, and it wasn't excessively long. They could have. I mean, I really don't think leaving that in would have made the episode too long. So I mean, one thing I did wonder, was she says in the deleted bit, "Don't forget the maraschino cherries," which kind of implies that this is something.
I am glad that. I'm glad
maybe they didn't want it to be a regular thing. Maybe they wanted it. She had just randomly propositioned him. I don't know.
I did like that they didn't pull out that part. I like that they didn't pull out with him leaning over almost nose to nose with her to talk to her, because that That 2 seconds like gives me life. I mean, damn.
Yeah, you know, I mean,
Crackle.
I mean, honestly, you know, I mean, obviously, I tend to be more into slash ships, but I mean, these two have a lot of chemistry.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
definitely.
I think it was probably because, you know, obviously Chris and Hattie already knew each other and we've been working together for a year or so they were really comfortable with each other, you know, so they could establish chemistry really quickly. I mean, maybe that's it.
I just found it funny considering how, you know, Rimmer and Holly relate to each other in an extremely different way than Melly and Ace.
Yeah, that's true.
It's funny, yeah. Of course, we will later see Holly's reaction to Ace, and it's classic.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They're all
Apparently, that's Hattie's idea. She was like, "Why don't I just see him and faint?" You know, wonderful idea.
exactly.
Right, so moving on to Bongo, and I'm just wondering, is Bongo over here Melly chattier pace, and just think, okay, I'll steal her line.
I don't know why he didn't just propose Ace come over to see him and his wife. I mean, you know.
He could have. I mean, I mean that. I mean, I think that would have had more success than
Yeah.
offering Tamu Sonata, because I mean,
I'm guessing the wife would have been into it. So
Tamu Sonata's not very nice.
Probably.
I mean, honestly, given all the substances that people offer is to lick off them, I'd say maple syrup is probably the pick.
Oh, I like the fact in this episode, the first few times I watched this, because there's still people who don't like Ace. And I get it, because the first times I saw this episode, he's initially presented as kind of a knob. And you get the distinct feeling he was written specifically to make Rimmer look more sympathetic by comparison and make their audience roll their eyes every time. Oh, what a guy, because we're automatically supposed to hate the jock type, whatever, over the underdog. And I wonder if it kind of backfired, because in real life, Chris is actually that charismatic, or almost that charismatic. I mean, anyone who's ever met him can say that. And
yeah,
he's also a lot more competent in real life than Rimmer is. I mean, I wouldn't call him Ace, but he's closer to Ace than he is to Rimmer. If you ever watch his, shows, Massive Machines, Britain's Greatest Machines, whatever, he clearly has a lot of knowledge and facility with anything machinery, hosting, things like this, interacting with people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, I think when I first watched this episode, I liked Ace more because I wasn't that keen on Rimmer at the time. I mean, I like Rimmer more these days because, I've thought more about his background, and so on, and he's become more sympathetic to me, but I think that was probably why I liked Ace more, even from the start. And also, actually, the fact that Ace instantly got on with Lister, I think that made me like him.
And I wanted to throw in too, and then I'll let someone else talk, but I wanted to say just briefly for anyone listening, if you don't like Ace or you are on the fence, if you have not read the Red Dwarf novel Backwards by Rob Grant, do it. Part of the book is Ace's backstory, and there's 2 scenes in there that made me absolutely just love him. The part with him the foot race as the child, where he loses the race to the smaller kid, and then the bar scene with the younger officer. And I won't give any spoilers away, but I'm just saying those 2 scenes make that book worthwhile.
Oh yes, I mean, I definitely agreed. Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, that was another thing. Having read the Ace parts of Backwards, I mean, made me realize that there was more to Ace than this sort of excuse me, this sort of macho jock type, just returning to Bongo. Personally, I think the reason Ace turns Bongo down is not because he's not into men. It's just he's not into Bongo, so he's just being tactful.
Gently, yeah. I know this sort of ties into what we were saying earlier about like Lister versus Spanners, and like whether he would have attempted to fix the engine and stuff. I think like Ace has a way of making everyone feel like good about themselves.
It's true, yeah.
Like sort of like bolstering them, and so they actually he says like sort of encouraging things to them, and then like those people actually go out and like they might try like things that they're capable of, like Spanners, right? If you assume that Lister and Spanners are kind of, maybe they start out at sort of the same like skill level or whatever, but Spanners has had like the better circumstances, but also like support from Ace and like others, so he could have reached his potential as an.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that is another reason why I like Ace as a character, because he brings everyone up. I mean, obviously the exception is Rimmer, but I mean that's obvious because Rimmer is a version of himself. And
it's like matter and antimatter.
Being something else. So I mean and I understand that the people who don't like Ace because Ace isn't that nice to Rimmer, but I mean, the reason for that is obviously because Rimmer is a version of himself. He's far harder on himself than he is on anybody else. But anyway, one thing I did want to say, which strikes me as kind of unfortunately dated now in the Bongo scene, with the bit where Bongo says, "My bread isn't actually buttered that side. I've been happily married for 35 years," which fair enough. But I mean, these days in the UK, which I know it's not the UK, but kind of the equivalent, you can get married, to your own gender, and this show is set in the future, so. So if it was really in the future, he would need to be a bit more specific than that. He would need to say, "I've been happily married to a woman for 35 years."
Yeah.
Or you could read it as, "I'm propositioning you, even though I've been happily married for 35 years, and I really shouldn't be cheating."
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could, but I think
that's being generous.
Yeah, you could, yeah. I think the thing is, he's trying to explain. I mean, obviously the point of the scene is Ace is so incredibly hot that even straight men, go from. I get the point they're trying to make, but
right. No, it's a good catch.
Yeah. So, writer. Okay. I mean, we've got a lot to talk about this episode. So let's go to the next scene, which is the going fishing scene. We're back with our regular crew, and. I love this scene, but I mean, it's really sort of hammering home, how unpopular and nerdy Rimmer is. I mean, to sort of contrast with Ace, I mean, they're really laying on with a trowel here. Yeah, I mean, I understand why, because it's a contrast, but I mean, there's really sort of going on with, oh, this man has incredibly geeky hobbies like Morris dancing, Hammond organ music, he likes telegraph poles, etc., etc.
There's a Tumblr post I marked a few weeks ago, and I wanted to give credit to the person. The username is "Violence is a Love Language," and they made a post where they were pointing out that the Ace seems every bit as insecure as Rimmer. But where Rimmer is at this point still excessively cowardly and self-serving, Ace has swung around the other way to total selflessness and self-sacrificing. Like, he and Rimmer both clearly want to be liked and loved. But whereas Rimmer seems to have basically given up on it ever happening, Ace seems to overcompensate by learning everything and trying to please everyone. But I do notice the thing they have in common is they both seem to hold others at a distance. Rimmer with his bitterness, and Ace by literally running away, first with a dangerous profession and then through dimensions where he's not around anyone for very long.
It's true. I mean, the thing is, people have pointed out in the past, that, even though he seems really fun to the people in his alternate dimension, as soon as he finds out about the about the dimension jump thing, he's instantly, okay, fine, off I go,
Yeah.
Just enough time to have a nice time with Melly, and then off he goes.
Right. And as you point out, Rimmer wants so much to be liked, but he's so bad at it. Whereas Ace, is good at it, but then leaves. So it's
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, the going fishing thing. It is such a funny scene, though. I mean, where River's going on about, I try to be light, and go on and on about, it's just sort of classic, person.
He has no awareness.
Person with boring hobbies, trying to be liked and failing. It's sorry to anyone who actually likes those things, but personally, I don't.
And it ties into the next episode we're gonna talk about, which is Meltdown, where he's talking about his risk game.
Oh God, yes.
Of course, yeah. He does.
We can discuss it more later, but yeah.
Of course. I know some autistic people read River as autistic. And definitely, I guess the way he's behaving here there is, you could say that. I mean, I don't think the writers were intentionally doing that. But having said that, they apparently weren't intentionally writing him as gay either. So go ahead, headcanon him as whatever you like, because he is a very headcanonable character as pretty much anything really.
Yeah, of course, the fishing scene gave us the condom fishing.
Yes,
black rib dumpler.
Condom fishing. One thing I did mean to say is, in this episode, I don't know what it was, but I don't know what's going on with the lighting, but for some reason, the lighting in this episode is very flattering on everyone. Everyone looks even better than they usually do. I don't know why.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, I don't know what they did, but it worked.
Maybe it's some kind of magic Ace filter.
I say they upped their lighting game for Ace and everyone else. A rising tide lifts all ships. So
and they sort of cap it off perfectly, with the revelation that even Holly was planning on sneaking off. Oh, who woke him up?
Yeah.
That was great. Just to drive home the point that River has no awareness of picking up on the fact that nobody wants him along.
And of course, because they feel guilty, he ends up coming along anyway. And we immediately cut to the demonstration of why they didn't want him along, because he's sitting there being a front seat driver with poor Crichton, and being a complete nightmare.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, maybe he has a point, because during the little part where the dimension jump comes barreling through, and then they're all in the back scrambling to get ready for an imminent crash or whatever, I'm thinking this is quite a lot of time. Space is three-dimensional. Why couldn't Crichton have just gone down or sideways? Why were they on a collision course? That seems like a lot of time to get out of the way.
Now you mention it, yeah, but he does something about I think, if I remember rightly, he says it's sort of homing in on them, and no matter what he does, he can't get out of the way. Perhaps that was supposed to cover it. But obviously the point is they had this quite lengthy dialogue, we're about to crash scene, and they didn't want to lose that. So you do have points. I suppose you could sort of have fan wank it, that somehow Ace, is destined to sort of hone in on alternate versions of his friends, and so no matter what they do, they can't avoid him. I don't know.
So now I have to wonder: is Ace the one that he's destined to hone in on the versions of himself that need help? Is he destined to be the one that creates the problem each time too?
You could argue that, couldn't you? It's
a little lingering Rimmerness there.
It's interesting actually, because he does say to the computer that it was his fault he caused the crash. He should apologise, but we don't actually see him apologise.
Yeah.
Maybe he does sort of screen. But yeah. Yeah, I must say though, I do really enjoy the scene when they're about to crash, because of course we get Lister instantly sort of taking charge, and refusing to let
Mhm.
Cat panic. I mean,
Yeah.
I just really like it when Lister, sort of takes charge, but not in a sort of, you will do what I say kind of way. Just in a, look, this is what we need to do, so we can minimise the chances of getting hurt, kind of way.
Yeah, I think this series, or maybe the previous one, was when Lister as like their leader, right? When that sort of began to take hold, like I would say like by series 6, it was like very well established. He was like um, that he was sort of the default leader of the group. But maybe this is kind of when it starts. Is that accurate, or am I?
Yeah, well, it's
getting...
kind of this. Yeah, I mean, it sort of happens in this series, as in series 4. I think. I mean, it has happened. I mean, I think it has already happened early in the series. I mean, for instance, in DNA, when they were hunting the when they were exploring the ship, and also in Justice, he was sort of starting to take the lead, but it's a bit more obvious in this episode, I think.
Yeah. I had forgotten about all the little scenes like during the crash when they're like reading the in-flight magazines. I had forgotten about them. They're so good.
So I remember reading a comment by someone a long time ago that the in-flight magazine stuff, it's very obviously a personal gripe of Robin Doug's.
Well, they're writers. I mean, you kind of, I can see their point. On the other hand, I'm sitting over here, since I do some freelance writing for money, I'm sitting over here thinking, every time I see it, I think, "Aw, somebody was paid to write that." That paid somebody's rent for a month.
And then again, if their writing helps somebody to calm down, so they weren't hurt as badly in a crash, then that's a good thing, isn't it? So I guess.
True.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the introduction of I say introduction, I mean to our crew, and of course. I love the little cue Howard Goodall gives as he comes in. It's just 2 notes, and then there he suddenly is. I do wonder how he got in. I mean, I assume that in the crash, the door was opened in some way. That must be how he got in without having to knock on the outside.
He's like Fonzie. He walks up and beats on it once and it opens. I don't know.
Yeah, but of course it's a wonderful entrance. I mean, the way he immediately sort of flatters Crichton, and then of course he sees Lister and is like, "Spanners,"
Yep.
the way he reacts to Lister is. It's very telling. I mean, at least it is if you are into Lister and Ace the way we are.
Oh yeah, yeah. And the look on Lister's face when he does it, he's just like, "A river with a kind word, huh?"
And a cool and really sort of suave river. I mean, what is this alternate universe? How I dropped into?
Yep.
It's interesting the way Ace says, "You remind me of the fellow I once knew." Does that mean that he's already been through a lot of dimensions, or
I think so.
Or is it the fact that he has literally just left Spanners, but he's already put him in the past mentally? I mean,
Well, I think he's been hopping around for a little bit because he walks in and he immediately he has a real short explanation. He's able to get it down and pat. Okay, this is me. I'm from an alternate dimension. And it sounds like the sort of thing that he's had practice explaining. And so he's been able to get it down into a short spiel.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, that makes a lot more sense, because I mean, when you say "I once knew someone," you don't mean, I just lived in this moment, left them in another dimension. It makes more sense if he has been, sort of dimension jumping for at least a few months, or years even. Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I love all the reactions. I love Crichton's sort of, I think it's sort of mild surprise, that he's being, being sort of, treated as an equal by any version of Rimmer, frankly. And of course, Lister is just kind of, smacked, and Holly just fakes wonderfully, and then Rimmer is like,
Immediately starts creating the spot the submarine scenario in his head, obviously.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I have to say, yeah. Before we get on to, I mean, trust me, we'll definitely get on to spot the submarine stuff. But before we do, I do want to the bit where Ace sort of, says to Rimmer, well, do this. Okay, well, if you can't do that, then do this, etc., etc. It's kind of a bit sort of painful and embarrassing, But I mean, how do I put this? I don't actually think Ace is intentionally trying to, humiliate Rimmer. I think he just can't he can't get his head around the fact that any version of him wouldn't be able to do these things. I mean,
yeah, like when they first meet, Ace says something like, "My God, it's a more handsome version of me," or whatever the line is, right? Like he really sort of builds up Rimmer as like so a version of me.
Yeah,
like he's really like nice. So I think he kind of assumed like, oh,
to him at all, I mean, the hostility only grows once he realizes how dramatically different Rimmer is from him. I mean, and honestly, I mean, it's got nothing to do with Rimmer's rank or anything. I mean, if Rimmer was ranked the same, but was friendlier and made more of an effort, frankly, like Lister, then there wouldn't be a problem at all. I mean, it's just the fact that Rimmer refuses to cooperate. And I mean, to be fair to Rimmer, obviously Rimmer is soft light and can't touch anything. I mean, Ace does kind of gloss over that a bit, I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, in the Backwards novel kind of justifies Ace a little bit, because they have a scene where Ace points out that actually you've got a light bee, you can interact via your light bee, but it's only in the Backwards novel. In the episode itself, it's like Ace is like, okay, so you can't touch anything, I mean, that's such a minor complication. You can get over that,
I like the small glimpse of Rimmerness you see in Ace when he's getting ready to go out. Smoke me a kipper. Can you do that?
Yeah.
That's Rimmer through and through.
Oh, definitely. Briefly returning, as you said, to people who don't like Ace, and I completely. I mean, obviously they're totally entitled not to like him, but I mean, there are all these little moments, where it's blatantly obvious that it is the same person, no matter how dramatically different. It is literally the same person.
I think it starts out. When it starts out, he's like it seems like he's giving Rimmer a chance to look good, and then as it goes on, you can see him getting progressively more disgusted.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he's like,
and it kind of turns into "Oh, you're useless, aren't you?" So
yeah. And then, of course, by contrast, Ace and Skipper immediately gel like a house on fire.
Oh God.
Briefly, before the, I do want to say the bit where they're fixing the engine, the Gale. That is really, really convincing, considering the budget they're working with. You really would think they're in a howling storm trying to fix an engine.
Yeah.
One thing I did wonder was when Lister slips and nearly falls, Ace offers him his arm to hold him up. Why the hell does he offer him his bad arm? I mean, come on.
I feel like it's to drive home the point of Ace. I mean, this is why I say the first few times I watched it, he's so ridiculously over the top heroic that you just roll your eyes and you're like, oh, I feel like Rimmer later. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's kind of the effect he had on me. But yeah, I think it is to show like how tough he is, right? Like how selfless he is.
I suppose so, yeah. It is interesting, I suppose. You can point out that he then apologises. Sorry, I'm going to have to do something a bit sissy and black out. So I suppose you could. That's a kind of sign, that Rimmer's internalised homophobia is still there. It's just buried a bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's get on to the scene which,
Speaking of internalized homophobia,
we really want to talk about. Let's face it. Which is actually, firstly the bit beforehand where Rimmer is ranting to Crichton, Commander Rimmer, Ace, Bath City, that one.
I think he's obviously jealous, but it's not just of the whole Lister thing. I mean, he's clearly jealous of Rimmer, of Ace, like that he is what he is, and Rimmer maybe is not that.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Yeah. And of course, there is a bit where Crichton says, I assume, sir, you are making fatuous references to his sexuality, if I may just point out. And then it gets cut off because Lister and Ace burst in. And there is a bit that got cut where Rimmer says, you may not, Crichton. And it's pretty obvious that he knows what Crichton is about to suggest.
Ooh, damn, why'd they cut that? That's good.
Yeah, I mean, well, why did they cut that?
Yeah, that's surprisingly overt for just for like the time and like what the show is like, just like basically coming right out and saying what they're saying there.
Because okay, we don't actually know what Crichton was going to say, but it's pretty obvious that he was going to say a version of, well, you're the same person, so if he's gay, then you're gay,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, okay, admittedly they were cutting a lot of good stuff in this episode for no particular reason, so maybe they didn't cut it for any nefarious purpose, but on the other hand, maybe they did, who knows?
I kind of have to wonder if that would be, if Rimmer would be more afraid of being thought gay or more afraid of having the sort of thoughts about Lister that it would lead to that, like if it would reveal that about him. I don't know if I'm saying that well.
Although, you do have to wonder if that was the case. He clearly got over it by the time Demons and Angels rolled around. I know it's kind of different because Low Rimmer is supposed to be evil and stuff, but still.
Yeah. But I think that's a good question, because he like all of this is based on like how Ace acts toward Lister, right? Like later he's like, oh, go on, he's probably picked a ring. So, like it's very obvious, like like Lister is a focus, at least like one of the things he's focused on when he makes all these comments.
Oh. So are you having a registry, as there a full church do? Oh, the snideness.
Yeah.
Bitterness in the voice, in the face.
I mean, I'm sorry, but the man is jealous as hell, and it's not just the fact that Ace is an officer. It's not just that.
And my question is, was that Chris's direction to act that way, or did he choose to act that way that much?
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder, because I've watched all the extras in regard to this episode, and they really, I mean, as far as I remember, the commentary and the documentaries, they really do not mention it. They kind of gloss over it, the sort of homoerotic subtext, which doesn't surprise me, because of course they would, I mean, there's really nothing about about it as far as I recall, I think they just kind of. I mean, for instance, I think the chemistry between Ace and Lister, I think they just kind of see it as sort of, I don't know, military camaraderie type stuff,
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Yes. So, the spot the submarine scene. The bit where Ace and Lister come in and do their and stand ridiculously close to each other. And gazing into each other's eyes. I mean, why do you want to explain your directing choices here?
trying to decide. I was watching again, and I can't decide of when, Ace is going to charge Rimmer and gets held back. Is he offended at the reference to him possibly being gay, or is he taking umbrage on Lister's behalf of being thought gay?
I think it's the latter, because he does actually say, just before that, you can say what you like about me, but I won't hear a word against Skipper here. So
Mhm.
and of course the way Lister immediately steps in and stops him. That I love that too, because I mean, as Theo Major points out, it shows how close they've got in a very, very short period of time. That Lister is confident if he'll just put his arm out. He knows that will stop Ace. So I mean,
It's interesting. Of course, the simpler explanation is Rimmer's just being a dick, and Ace wants to hit him. So.
I mean, obviously we are quite aware, that average viewer of this will not interpret it the way we do, but do we care? No, we don't. Sorry.
Nope.
Yeah. One more thing. Do you think Big Boys in Boots is an actual magazine?
I hope so.
Why not?
Because I mean, if it's an actual magazine, then
maybe that's the
the
reason Rimmer gets mad every time Lister wants to go through his magazines in his locker after he becomes a hologram. He's afraid.
Honestly, I mean,
don't go through my Love Celibate Society and Morse Dancing newsletters. It's like, you don't find the thing I have stuffed in the middle of them.
You have to wonder if it is an actual magazine. Did they ever get a letter about help? I'm in love with my roommate.
I'm not laughing. That would be Rimmer. That would be hilarious. Just because he's such a deeply unhappy and sad and pathetic. Oh, I feel bad for him. I'm not laughing at the situation, because there's obviously people that, nice people who have that problem, but this is Rimmer, so we can laugh.
Exactly, yes. Right, okay, so
Gosh.
So not the next scene, but skipping over the bit where Cat is delirious in the corridor, and Ace immediately obviously knows what to do, unless of course you've got anything you particularly want to say about that. I mean, of course it's the bit where Rimmer finally snaps and says, "Oh my god." I'm sort of mindful of the time. So I mean, moving on to the bit which is on the DVD subtitled as Old Boy Network. Basically, it's where Lister comes into the boat room and Rimmer says, "How's the cat?" And as Danny says on the commentary, things are bad when Rimmer is asking about the cat.
Yeah, I caught that too.
Yeah.
It's little. I think they put it in because it's little touches like that remind you why the audience likes a character like Rimmer. Like, he is very he's kind of like Frank Burns on MASH. But he's not quite as bad as Frank. I mean, Frank is so unlikable, but Rimmer is just a touch more. Every once in a while you're reminded, okay, he does think of other people sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So yeah. Oh, I did want to say. I mean, of course, we get more sort of juicy and jealousy from Rimmer, but also it is interesting. Lister is so happy for Spanners. I mean, there's obviously been an off-screen conversation between him and Ace about Spanners, which I really wish we'd seen actually, but I like the fact that he's happy for Spanners. Of course, when we get to series 7, and he's confronted with Chloe Annette Skochansky and her Dave. Obviously, it's kind of different, but I mean, to be fair, it's kind of different when you actually see them in front of you being really obnoxiously happy. He doesn't actually see Spanners and that Kuchansky, so I guess it's easier to be happy for them.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think Lister's still young, or relatively young here, so he may be less less tired, I think.
I think you're right. By the time Series 7 rolls around, I mean, even though he's still very young and still looks very young, I think kind of weariness is starting to set in a bit. Poor Phil.
Yeah. And then eventually, it goes into his multiple midlife crises.
Oh boy.
In later series.
Oh, man, but they are handled well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, of course, Rimmer carries on, insisting, it's not my fault. Ace was lucky; he got the breaks, etc., etc. And then, of course, the final sort of killer blow, so to speak. Although I do wonder actually, did Lister, after Ace had gone, go and tell Rimmer, guess what? You're wrong. It was Ace who got kept down a year, or did he keep that to himself?
Boy. I'd like to think he told him at some point.
Yeah, he probably did. Yeah, but I mean, maybe not straight after Ace had gone. But yeah, I mean, he probably did. I wonder, maybe that might have been part of his trying to persuade Rimmer to go and be Ace himself instead of be a Clipper. Maybe that was one of the things he told him off screen. It could have been.
So to show that they're not so different that Rimmer can't go and be Ace.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a possibility actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like if he told Rimmer right away afterwards, that would have been a pretty spiteful thing. Which I'm not saying he but
character for listening.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe he kind of thought to himself, well, maybe I'll save up that piece of information in case it's ever needed to use, but in an encouraging way, not in a spiteful way. In a, look, he's not actually that dramatically different from you after all way, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Plus, Rimmer doesn't really modify his behavior much at all. In fact, he kind of doubles down on the dickishness as we get into the next episode. Yeah, so I don't think he knows.
Yeah, I do definitely intend to, reference this episode in the next episode, so to speak, because it may. I think there is a possibility in universe, it's next episode may have been influenced by this episode, so to speak. But just getting back to this episode, I do definitely want to comment on the final scene that we get between Lister and Ace, which is, how do I put this? I mean, it's the way it's lit and everything. I mean,
the sexual tension that radiates off of it.
Yeah,
yeah. I was trying to think of the way to put it. I mean,
very intimate.
It's just very intimate and sexually charged. And yes, I know they don't actually kiss or anything, but they do touch very briefly. I mean, I know it's not the most romantic thing, to put your finger on someone's whatever it is he's doing, stitching up his arm kind of thing. But the way they film it, they somehow make it look sexy. I don't know why.
The man shared his cigars. I mean,
of course, there is the smoking, which. In real life, I do not smoke and I hate smoke, but somehow these two make it look sexy.
Oh yeah,
I have commented on that before. Yeah, especially Craig. He just makes that. I also really hate. I don't smoke. I really hate being around people who are smoking. But yeah, just Craig makes it really nice to look at.
There's probably something someone could say about the whole visual oral fixation thing. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely
with these two.
I mean, we could, but I mean, perhaps we better save it for our Vics. I mean, I mean, if you want to talk, right, then don't let me stop you. I mean, but I mean, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, one thing I did want to mention. I mean, I have mentioned this before, but I want to mention it again for anyone who missed it, which is. Ace, if you look when Ace leaves, he leaves this packet of cheroots behind, and Lister obviously pockets it because Later
Yes.
on, in the Inquisitor, when he's threatening the Inquisitor, he suddenly produces a shroot out of nowhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just love that little detail that Luther decided to keep it, for badass moments.
Yeah.
Yep. Special occasions.
whenever he needs to feel especially cool and dangerous. Yeah. Okay, so the ending of this episode, it's, how do I put this? I mean, I don't dislike it. I mean, I think it's a perfectly serviceable ending, but I think you could kind of tell they couldn't quite decide how to end the episode. What's been, they sort of have Rimmer trying to get the Scutters to dump Kippers on Ace, and then failing. There is actually a deleted scene where Rimmer goes out after Ace has gone, in why isn't this working kind of way? And then the Kippers actually do come and they land on him, which obviously makes zero sense because he's soft light. They would just fall through him.
Yeah.
Right.
Why how they managed to film this without somebody pointing this out? But I mean, obviously that's why it got cut, presumably. I do like the little scroll we get where it says Ace never Arnold Rimmer so deeply sad and worthless, because it makes me think, so does that mean he did meet Arlene? Because let's face it, she is equally sad and worthless as Arnold, so I do like the theme, because the Scutters do it on Hammond organ. That's a little twist.
Oh yeah.
Although
I got two episodes in a row with specialized closing music.
It's. I mean, I do like the way they were experimenting with the with the theme songs. I mean, it just makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, hey! We haven't mentioned. We probably should have mentioned Howard's ripping off "Take My Breath Away" for Ace's theme. I mean, that just adds an extra little something.
Yeah, I think the scenes wouldn't have been all those entrances and everything. Like, they wouldn't have been as effective without the music, without the right music. So I think Howard did a really fantastic job.
Yeah, I mean, of course, obviously Howard always does a fantastic job. But sometimes he excels himself, and he did for this episode.
Yeah, I think so.
It's clever how, I know nothing about music, but it's clever how he was able to rip it off just enough not to have to pay rights.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he's obviously he's a very, very successful, very experienced. I mean, he knows how to do that. Unfortunately, he wouldn't be able to. I think he said he wouldn't be able to do this nowadays because regulations have been tightened. But I mean, I'm glad they would looser back then, because it meant we got that theme. For both of you, I would like to get scores out of 10 for the episode, both overall as an episode and for how would you rate it for slashiness.
Oh gosh, I'm really bad at this kind of thing. To give a number.
Just not go by your instinct.
So for slashiness, I would say take 10 out of 10. Do I with the overall rating? I mean, it's it's a great episode, obviously. I don't know. I never think of it as one of my personal favorites. I get, because there's just others I am more attached to. So I don't know. I would say 8.5, 9 out of 10.
Thank you. And you, Vera?
I would definitely say, as episodes go, 10 out of 10, because it's one of my favorites. Just overall quality. I think everybody's well used. I would have liked to have seen a little more of Kat's interaction. That's maybe not as well used during the episode, but somebody had to be injured, I guess.
Yeah.
But I like how they use them all. And then for slashiness, I mean, what can I say? It's one of the episodes that this podcast exists, probably.
Exactly, yes. It really is, yes.
So, like 15 out of 10, something like that.
I mean, honestly, this is the episode which inspired me to write my first slash fic. So, I mean, what else can I say? Yeah. So, anyway, my score out of 10 for the episode is 10 out of 10 because I really do think it's a brilliant episode, and also slashiness, I don't know, 10 out of 10, 15 out of 10, 20 out of 10. This episode is Slasherama City, I'm sorry, but it just is. I mean, to be fair, we haven't even mentioned the vibe between, well, we have, but I mean, it's not just between our three main characters, so to speak. It's also Bongo for Ace, you know what I mean, and Spanners for Ace, probably. I mean, so I mean, there was just so much slash clinging around this episode.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're over an hour, so I need to wrap up now. Okay. So that wraps up this episode of Smeg and the Femmes. Thank you to Hologamet for technical help, and also thank you to my guests Veronica Rich and RoseCathy. If you'd like to give us feedback, you can do so on Tumblr or Discord, the posts where I'll be linking to this episode. You can also email us at smegandthefemmes@gmail.com. One more thing for the benefit of anyone who isn't on Tumblr or Discord. We're in the process of archiving our episodes from Buzzsprout to YouTube. So if you want to look up our earlier episodes again, just search for Smeg and the Femmes on YouTube. And the next episode we'll be covering is the somewhat controversial Meltdown. I hope you'll join us then. But for now, goodbye.